Great to see you here again. In this session, I will look deeper into different project management environments. I will concentrate in this video on the deterministic and adaptive environments. I will look deeper in what is typically referred to as Waterfall, while the other is better known as Agile. Deterministic environments are characterized by limited flexibility, and when applied on the wrong types of project, will certainly lead to failure, and that has been proven in many cases. Adaptive environments are useful when we expect many changes and need flexibility. Agile has been proven successful in, for example, IT projects, R&D, and other. Let us now have a look at the deterministic environments in more detail and describe the possible problems you can have with it. Deterministic environments are also referred to as waterfall. They show the different steps that are executed in series. Once a step is completed, the next step is started, and so on. The picture at the right-hand side shows a classical waterfall project. It starts with the requirements, then the design, implementation, verification, and finally maintenance. All steps are completely planned in detail from the start. This also means that all details have to be known from the very beginning. Typically, the project team gathers all the data at the beginning and completes the project as defined. This is a big problem, certainly when the project takes a long time and the circumstances may change. The lack of flexibility and the difficulty to apply changes make it difficult, if not impossible, to apply them, and the final project may be completely useless, although the project itself may have been completed successfully. Although in many cases a waterfall approach can be the best way to deal with a project, in other cases it will lead to failure. There are many examples where a waterfall approach has already led to disasters, and there are a few examples I want to share with you. A few years ago, the British Navy completed the construction of the HMS Queen Elizabeth, which was also nicknamed HMS Windows XP. When the ship was shown to the public and the press, they saw that the computer system was still using Windows XP, although it already had been discontinued for many years. When the project team was questioned about this, they said that all was completed within scope and a new project would be defined to update the IT system, basically rendering the ship virtually unusable until the update would be completed. Even within a waterfall project, we have to take into account technological changes that may have an important impact, like the computer operating system. In my personal opinion, it's not only failure of the waterfall system, but also professional incompetence. Changes like this have to be expected, and procedures should be applied to take it into account. Another big failure is the J. Sainsbury failing supply chain management system. A project identified all the needs, defined the scope, made a plan, executed it, and when it was finally implemented, it failed. When the project was completed and implemented, all issues appeared and it was impossible to resolve easily. Changes like this can be catastrophic, and it would be better to have a stepwise or agile approach. Issues would have been discovered and the errors or bugs would have been easy to recover. In general, a waterfall approach is not the best way to deal with projects in fast-changing environments. When the scope is not well defined and many changes can be expected, the waterfall approach is not recommended. Although the waterfall approach provides nice schedules and planning, practice shows us that these charts and prognoses are not necessarily representing the truth and create a nice feeling. When applied in the wrong situation, the planning obtained using waterfall will be merely a fairy tale with a bad ending. Adaptive environments are built on lean principles and the principles of avoiding waste, like unnecessary planning and replanning. Lean principles have shown many improvements, and saving in operations and their applications into project management have led to a new series of flexible project management methods. Agile is a summary name referring to all types of adaptive project management methods like Scrum, Kanban, extreme programming, and others. In this course, I will only consider Scrum and Kanban. At the basis, we have the product description and product backlog. The product backlog contains all the work that has to be finished to complete the project. The Scrum Master, together with the product owner, will decide the priority of the items to be completed and plan them in sprints. The items in the product backlog are referred to as stories and describe the work that has to be completed with an estimation of the effort. During the sprint, the stories are worked on and their status is shown on the Scrum board. The stories move over the board from to do to doing and completed. Sprints take a constant time, like 2 weeks, and end when the time is over. Stories that have not been completed will go back to the backlog, and the Scrum Master will decide whether to reschedule the story or not. During the sprint, changes are not possible. Once the sprint has been completed, it will be reviewed and a new sprint will be planned. Scrum does not have a detailed planning and changes can be done frequently without any impact on the project planning. Changes are easy to do and the project can be adjusted flexibly to new requirements and needs. A variant of Scrum is Kanban. In this system, we use a similar board, but we call it a Kanban board instead of a Scrum board. In Kanban, there are no sprints, and stories are added constantly to the project baseline on the priority set by the project team and the product owner. A Kanban project is using flow similar to lean operations and provide a very flexible way to manage projects. We looked a little bit deeper into deterministic and adaptive project management environments, and you may wonder what the best way is to deal with projects. Some people will claim that a deterministic approach or waterfall approach is better than an adaptive or vice versa. People in IT will probably prefer an agile approach, while people in construction would prefer a waterfall approach. In the book Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time by Chef Sutherland, he describes an example where he brings a multidisciplinary team together to renovate the kitchen and how his friend did it the classical way and it took much longer. Well, this should also have been done in waterfall projects and is certainly done in construction projects. When I was leading some of these projects and when there were multiple techniques being implemented, all specialists came together. I must agree that in many projects all is planned in parallel in specialized teams. This is certainly not efficient. It is important to keep the larger picture even in a deterministic environment. I have the impression that some people have lost their common sense and are hiding behind some general methods and methodologies. Project management has always been dealing with uncertainty and changes. Although some environments are more or less sensitive to changes, we always have to keep in mind that the project management is an uncertain environment. I have the impression that when the waterfall method was originally defined and proposed as method for IT projects, common sense also was lost. The original waterfall method was also an iterative method, but suddenly it was used to create a method without any flexibility, and that was not the goal or the intention when waterfall was created. Agile projects are not perfect and they also can fail. Typically, agile projects fail due to a lack of structured planning and documentation. No planning may lead to the failure of agile projects. Hence, we have to take this into account and have to keep structure even in an agile environment. Typically, agile environments do not have a lot of documentation, and the PMI likes documentation. Documentation is easy to identify problems and to resolve problems afterwards. The lack of those are the two weaknesses of Agile. For me, the project manager and the team should be agile. The project manager should be flexible and should adapt the way how he or she and the team will organize the project and take into account the specific circumstances of the project. This was a short introduction into deterministic and adaptive project environments. Now we are ready to go to the next session. See you there.